Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Welcome, my friends, to Paranormal Heart Podcast, a safe place to talk about your paranormal encounters. I'm your host, Kat Ward. If you like to share your stories about ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, your local legends, your psychic gifts, anything weird and creepy, we want to hear from you. You can be a guest on the show or send me your real story for me to narrate on the show. Just reach out to me at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. And if you choose to remain anonymous, I will not mention your real name. New episodes are released on the second and last Sunday of each month at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Podbean, KPNL Digital Network, and any place you find fine podcasts. If you want to help support the show, please share the show with others, like each episode, and leave a review. It helps to bring the show to more people. The more people that we reach, the more people will realize that they are not alone with these experiences. Another way to show your support for the show is to buy merch. That's right, folks. You can now find Paranormal Heart Podcast merch on TeePublic. You can pick up mugs, shirts, hats, and more. And please, share the TeePublic with others. I'll add the link in the show notes. Folks, my special guest for episode 116 is a prominent figure in the Sasquatch community, Mr. Thomas Sewid. Thomas has made appearances on Sasquatch television shows, podcasts, movies, and conferences. He is a talented First Nation artist originally from Qualicum Bay, British Columbia, and has been featured in magazines such as Compass Magazine, where he talks about his beautiful West Coast native art. Thomas strives to educate people on how to have a safe and respectful close encounter of a hairy kind, as he calls it. So sit back, relax, and let's get on with the show. Hello, Thomas. Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast.
Yola Kosla, greetings. Thank you for having me on.
Like I mentioned earlier, it is a great honor for me to have you on because I've heard you on so many podcasts. Obviously, Sasquatch Chronicles is where I've heard you the most. You seem to be a regular on there. And my friend Eric, Uncomfortable Podcast. So I am so honored that you accepted to be on mine. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. No, that's what I do. I'm getting the word out about Sasquatch, so I reach out to all the podcasters and get invited by others. And
nice.
It's just all about sharing my knowledge on Sasquatch.
And my listeners know that I have a soft spot for fellow Canadians. So whenever I have a Canadian guest, it's great because most of my guests are from the States. Not that I don't love my American brothers and sisters down there, but I don't have as many Canadians as I'd like. So thanks. So I thought we could start talking about your art.
Oh yeah, I'm a Qualicum First Nation, an Indian from northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, and we have very rich art. A lot of us are artists, and we have the potlatch where we carve the regalia, the masks, and we have paddles and totem poles. People call them. We call them different names like welcoming poles, dowry poles, house posts, welcoming poles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's we try not to use the word totem. We'll refer to that's a memorial pole in the graveyard for a chief. That's a welcoming pole in the village, and so forth. So being a commercial fisherman all my life, and I knew one day I would shut down. Broken up body, too old. So I started to learn the West Coast native art probably 30 years ago or longer. And it was the last 10 years where I really picked up knives and pencils and paintbrushes and Sharpie pens and just kept honing my skills. And then about 2014, I guess, I got involved with running the Facebook group Sasquatch Island. It had 54 members. I went to it. I was one of the members. And there's a little icon flashing saying this group needs an administrator. So I pushed the button and I became the administrator, and I began to share my information. And then all of a sudden, I was arguing with the TV saying these investigators, they don't know bugger all, Peggy, my wife, about Sasquatch. What the hell are they doing banging on trees? They're just telling the Sasquatch. When the Sasquatch bangs, they're saying, stop, turn around, go back where you came from. I said, well, what are you doing banging trees? They're never going to see a Sasquatch. And she said, why don't you go on a podcast? And, this is 2014. And I'm like, what's a podcast? So she told me, and I did some Googling. And the next day I found Sasquatch Chronicles, sent him an email. And all of a sudden, the next day he phoned me and we started talking. 5 minutes into our conversation, he goes, how about I record you? I said, sure. So he recorded me, and a few days later, he phoned me back and he said, my listeners are saying, hey, we want to hear this guy more. He knows what he's talking about. This Indian from Vancouver Island. And because I lived in bush for over 26 years and I was a commercial fisherman and still am all my life. And, I'd been to places and still do in British Columbia coast where most people will never go or know about. And yet I'd go there tied to the docks, ask them, what do you know about Sasquatches since I was a young boy? And, all my life, I heard all these rich stories and legends and encounters. So I shared that on Wes's podcast. And then all of a sudden I seen my membership on Sasquatch Island starting to just go up like a ticker. Yeah. And more people were phoning me and emailing me saying, we'd like you on our podcast or video cast or documentary. We'd like you to star in the movie Bigfoot Girl. And now it's history where, here I am as, I guess you can say, not with Eagle or Fathead, but I'm one of the Sasquatch celebrities. I do the conference circuit. I do the television documentaries. My wife and I are producing Amazon Prime television show that she's editing right now. And so word's getting out that, there's a lot of Sasquatch investigators. Some call themselves researchers. And I say, no, until you have a Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction, habituation going on with the hairy members of the other tribe, Sasquatch, then you become a researcher. Until then, we're stumbling, bumbling, speculating investigators. And, sharing the First Nations cultural information pertaining to Chonachwa, what we call Sasquatch in our language. And my mother's a full-blooded Cree, so I'm half Cree from Saskatchewan as well. So I learned a little bit about their Sasquatch stories and everything. And then I seen when I went to the conferences that they had these knockoff Indian designs of Sasquatch. And I just rolled my eyes and I'm like, this is so wrong. Number one, you don't plagiarize other people's art. And the native crests, like my shirt here of Chonachwa, Sasquatch, Patty 352 in my interpretation. And we got this drum I just finished painting of a Chonachwa on a shellfish beach, and he's harvesting cockles, the favorite food of the Sasquatch, this type of shellfish. Those are crests, and they're owned by families, chiefs and families. So you can't, as a non-native, in our laws, take a pencil or a pen or a brush and start designing a Sasquatch. It's a owned crest. So I thought I could be a whiny Indian about it, or I can affect positive change and do better designs than them because I'm an Indian. So that's what I've been doing. And, I do my art on everything. I do wood carvings as well. I had a gentleman from New York who I found a Chonachwa Sasquatch mask in a antique place in Seattle before Christmas. So I advertised it. They're selling it for $400. This is like a $2,000 mask. If you guys want it in your collection, send me the money. I'll go buy it for you and ship it to you. Mm-hmm. So this guy from New York took me up on the offer, as did many others, but he was the first one. I bought the mask for him, sent it to him. And then he said, Tom, I want to have hands on it like that. So like we do the whoop whoop design, it's called, where the Sasquatchers are whoop whoop whoop. So he wanted wooden hands. So I carved them 2 weeks ago, painted them up, shipped them to him, and he sent me a picture the other night, and I'll send it to you. It looks really good on his wall with the hands I carved. So I saw then, I know there's a huge interest for my West Coast native designs of Chonachwa, Sasquatch, and other creatures I do as well. I'll do eagles, bears, ravens, you name it. But I really lucked out about 5 years ago. There was a friend of mine helping master lathe turner, Bill Lucier. And Bill had gotten in a motorcycle accident about 7 years ago. And his wife said, okay, we'll let you heal and then you can start turning again, because he had a big studio, and his bowls were selling for thousands, and he was a millionaire because of it.
Wow.
And after 5 years or so, they realized he wasn't going to heal. He was going to be stuck on a walker. Still have that brain damage from the motorcycle accident. So my friend was helping him downsize their estate and studio. And they said, tomorrow when you come to work, all of these bowls that are in the freezer that are shaped round but not hollowed and wrapped in wax paper, and all these bowls in the studio and the ones outside in that shop, burn them. And my friend just went, burn them? I know this Indian guy who lives in the next city, Kent, Washington. It's only 20 minutes down the road. He does West Coast Native art. He might be able to use them for his art. So they said, well, invite him over tomorrow. So I went there and told him who I was and introduced myself and what I do with the bowls. And after, thinking about it for about half an hour, they said, go ahead, take them. And so I took 2.5 vehicle loads, pickup trucks and vehicles, SUVs full of bowls. And then I guess that was in 2022 in early spring, they phoned me again after COVID was winding down. And they said, you want more bowls? I said, okay. So I went to their new estate and they gave me a bunch more bowls, but too many. I didn't have any storage for it. I live in a 3-bedroom condo. And so I said, what about if I reached out to the Indian tribes and then Washington State? And I know one I work with, they might want the bowls for their youth programs. And they said, go ahead. Well, the Muckleshoot Indian tribe in Auburn, Washington went there with 2 panel vans and SUV and took probably over 2,000 bowls. So now I'm sitting here with my attic above my garage full of bowls, my garage half filled with boxes full of bowls, my studio in here full of bowls. And that's what I do my art on. And if you go to sasquatchisland.com and go to the artist page and to the gallery page, you'll see a lot of those bowls that are videotaped on a spinner pedestal with the design and me narrating what it's all about and so forth. And, it's my industry, but unfortunately, of late, we've had a really bad economy and stuff hasn't really been selling. So I've taken a contract in St. Louis where I fly out Monday from Seattle, and I'll be captaining, because I'm a commercial fisherman for life, I'll be captaining a boat catching with nets the invasive Asian carp in the Mississippi River in Missouri, Illinois, around St. Louis. So, that's about all I know right now. I'll go out and stick my toes, so to speak, in the water, test it out. Yeah. If it works out, I got myself a good paying job, and I'll, rotate, probably 2 weeks there, 2 weeks at home, but I'll still be doing my art. I'm actually packing. You'll see suitcases behind me, and I'm going to be fitting in some of the vases that are made of wood that are just like a glass vase tube, and other smaller items that I can bring with me to St. Louis, and I'll be painting when I'm not fishing and keeping up my art, so that hopefully someone will email me and say, hey, I want to buy that, or, can you make me this? I even do designs for people who want tattoos like this one. This is
really? That's awesome.
Rough design of tattooed on a guy's arm in Texas.
Oh, wow.
And then I got other designs out there that are tattooed as well. So it's really nice doing art, and, especially bringing into the whole, what I call the Sasquatch community of enthusiasts and investigators and celebrities that are on TV and authors, and then into the Sasquatch industry, because it is an industry now. And I'm bringing in more of the Native Indian interpretations in our art of Sasquatch, and which is really good because, a lot of people want it, like this t-shirt. I work with SasquatchTheLegend.com, which has an online store as well as a store that I did murals on the wall for in Forks, Washington. They market, I think, 8 or 9 of my designs on everything from t-shirts, coffee mugs, playing cards, coasters, fridge magnets, Christmas decorations, lanyards, shower curtains, and mats.
Oh,
and,
wow.
So, it's nice that, every now and then Peggy goes, oh, you got another check. And, I get my royalties check. And that's, it's nice to have more money coming in from my art.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my favorite of your art for the designs, obviously the Sasquatch, but I also love there was one. It was a hummingbird with flowers. Oh, it's so beautiful. Like you are
Yeah.
talented. I mentioned to you earlier. I can't even draw stick men.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Well, like I say, just go to SasquatchIsland.com, the gallery page. You'll see quite a bit of the art.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out for sure. There was another piece of art that I really liked. It was the two-headed sea serpent that it was gifted to your father, I believe it was, by his uncle, and then your father asked you to paint it. That was beautiful as well.
Yeah, that's double-headed sea serpent,
Yeah.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's just such a special piece that you've painted because, your father asked you to paint it. So that was, it's beautiful.
Story behind that is the book and the television movie from the 70s called The Owl Called My Name. Very famous book in Canada. Was the main character in there, Indian, was based upon my uncle, Adam Dick, from back in the 50s when Reverend Powell was in Qualicum Indian Village. And then he wrote that fictional account with a historical attachment of the Kwakwaka'wakw people. And my uncle Adam, he was a very famous chief when he was alive, and he carved it and painted it, but he only finished it halfway on painting. He got lazy and gifted it to my dad. So my dad was in Nanaimo Hospital, and he was diagnosed with stomach cancer last spring, early summer. And Sasquatch gives you the skin of stone. No weapon or blow can harm you. It can protect you and the family. And my dad said, you should finish that Sasquatch design while he was in his deathbed. So I went back to the house, and 2 days I just painted and brought it to the hospital and laid it on him. And I said, I finished it. My dad said, oh, good. Gee, that looks really nice. Thank you for finishing it. And then, within a week, he passed.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
My mom said, you should just take it home with you. And I said, no, Mom. I said, right above the stairs when you come in the house, there's the pictures of all the family and the 4 grandkids and, all of us adults, like me and my sister and my half-brother. I said, let's do what Dad would want. He wants that Sasquatch above there to protect his family while he's gone. That's why he wanted me to paint it. So
nice.
That's the story of the Sasquatch.
And I believe they also say that if you consume the blood, that you will temporarily have supernatural powers.
It all depends on the family, what their legend interpretation is. But it's, it is, you can rub the blood on your body and get the skin of stone as some versions. Yeah. The other one is you can eat the flesh and you get supernatural powers for a short period of time to be an ultimate warrior. You can make yourself invisible, see through things, hear great distances, and make canoes go fast across the water with no paddlers. And the list goes on. Like I say, it's all about what Kwakwaka'wakw or Lechwata, the southern tribes, story in their family is all about. So every family will have legends and stories and songs and regalia and dances pertaining to Chunachwa, the Sasquatch, or Sasquatch, double-headed sea serpent, Queequegwanala, the thunderbird, Kwatwina, the raven. So that's what a potlatch is all about. When you hear the word potlatch, it's a celebration of life where a chief calls a potlatch and people are invited and we all go. And what they do is the chief will open his kildas, his symbolic box of treasure of names and songs and crests, and you will witness the family's treasure and wealth by watching all these crests come to life and dance and song and be worn on regalia of button blankets and tunics and you name it. And at the end of the celebration where family members are entered into the societies they were born into or aspired to be initiated into, or they mourn the family members who had passed since the last potlatch, could be decades. And it's just this great celebration of life. In the old days, it was our theater, it was our cathedral, it was our graduation ceremony, like a university or college or youth high school. So it was everything to us. It was our governance, it was our Congress, our parliament with all the chiefs in attendance. And, a spiritual realm, because when you go into a ceremonial big house, the front is all painted of crest figures of that tribe. Could be in Campbell River, Alert Bay, Comox, Kinkum, or wherever. And then when you walk in the great doors, you'll see big vertical pillars holding the big roof logs up, and everything's intricately carved like what you would think of as a totem pole. Well, those are house posts, and it's all beautiful, and the only light is a central fire. So when you see the Chonacha come out, like I don't know if you can make it out, but the one design above the suitcase of the Chonacha with a basket on her back chasing misbehaving children. Well, you'll hear that song and the drumming, and you'll see in firelight with all those beautiful crest forms on those vertical posts, you'll see that Chonacha dancer come out with a mask and regalia, fur, and basket on the back. And they'll be imitating, throwing the children in the back, yawning because they're tired, rubbing their eyes, whooping, whoop, whoop, whoop. So you see all that in potlatches, and every family chief has a different interpretation, a different story. So it may have a basket, it may not, it might have a sack, it might have a baby. It all depends on the family. And that's what the great thing about potlatches is when you go to them, every one of them is different to a certain degree.
So it depends on the family?
Yep. Depends on the family, what crests they have title to.
Nice.
That were acquired through marriage through thousands of years. That's how we acquired the crests.
It's amazing. Yeah, like I told you before, I've been to Campbell River with my grandparents. I've fished there with a friend of my grandfather's. We caught some sockeye salmon. I love Campbell River. I just love the West Coast. I'm originally from the East Coast, like I told you, but I don't know. Just part of my heart and soul is still in BC. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Campbell
River, it's a city with the highest concentration of wood carvings of Sasquatch on Earth. Definitely bucket list for any Sasquatch enthusiast to go to Vancouver Island, number one, Ape Island. Go to the museums that we have in Victoria and Campbell River, the Umista Cultural Center in Alert Bay. Alert Bay is a town with the highest concentration of Sasquatch wood carvings on Earth, world's tallest totem pole. You can see the dancers in the big house, like a potlatch during the summer tourism season. So, like I tell people, and that's why I do podcasts, is, if you're going to be a Sasquatch investigator, enthusiast, author, television producer, you have to have a pilgrimage to Vancouver Island, and you have to go see those native Kwakwaka'wakw and Lehwata tribe Sasquatch carvings, as well as the Coast Salish down in the south part of the island, the other tribes. And, it's something that, I'm educating people about is, there's so much tied to the Sasquatch from the Kwakwaka'wakw and Lehwata tribes. And I've been to numerous places in North America and talked to other Indian tribes. And I've never found an Indian tribe in personal communication or in my research on books and the internet over a lifetime that shows another Indian tribe in North America that has tied to the Sasquatch, Chonacha, as tightly as the Kwakwaka'wakw, Lehwata tribes in North Vancouver Island.
Oh, really?
See, now you learned something.
I know.
You got to research all that.
I know.
And a lot of people, they ask me, well, where do I start? Well, Kwakwaka'wakw, otherwise known as Quagga-Yoodle, begins with a K.
Mm-hmm.
Email me. I can send you a links page with things so you can, ease your researching. But best way is go to Facebook, Sasquatch Island. Take a beverage break, join the group, sit down, or after a bathroom break and you grab a beverage, sit down, and I promise you, you're going to have days of scrolling, watching, listening to, looking at, reading. And by the end of you scrolling back to roughly 2014, 2015, when I started posting on there, and there's no repetitive posts. Very rare will I share another post from another Sasquatch group or cultural group, unless it really pertains, like one of the great carvers, Calvin Hunt from the Quagga tribe of northern Vancouver Island, Port Hardy. We actually from the village of Chachis, we call it, Fort Rupert. But he's got a carving studio called, oh God, now I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, he has a carving studio gallery in the village where he lives. And Coppermaker Gallery, that's what it's called. You can Google that as well. But anyway, he did a video where he's explaining the difference between the Chonacha female mask and the male Chonacha, that I can't remember the name, male Sasquatch. And it's really in depth to have that. He's an elder. He's older than me, and a famous carver. But to have him sharing and explaining the names and difference between the male and female Sasquatch pertaining to the Qualicum people, it's very educational. And you'll never find that in a book or on the internet. It's other than the video that he does. And it's on Sasquatch Island, I think, 3 years ago.
So tell us about, there's a Sasquatch and shellfish expedition?
I have numerous expeditions on Sasquatch Island. Basically, a lot of people go, "Oh, what's the date?" Well, I used to run SeaCat companies, operations. I used to run boat-based whale and grizzly bear tours. And yes, I had struck schedules. We leave at 8 o'clock in the morning. Second one will leave at 3 in the afternoon, yada, yada, yada. With Sasquatch, you can't do that. Number one, it's not a big enough industry. So I cater to what the individual wants. I schedule what the individual's time slot is. So someone phones me and says, I'm going to be in Vancouver Island, Campbell River in May 15th. I'm like, what would you like to do? What is your budget? And you've seen the expeditions I do, from simple as $250 a day, where I meet you at the hotel, jump in your vehicle, and off we go to the races, going Sasquatch investigating, seeing carvings and galleries and you name it. And spending time with me. I'll teach you everything I know. And, it's $250 for the day. And, usually that's about 12 hours. And then it's, goes up from there. If someone wants to go to my Sasquatch investigation camp out in the middle of Timbuk flipping nowhere, northern Vancouver Island, north of Campbell River on the Ed Johnson Straits, used to be my kayak with whales camp. But we have so much Sasquatch activity there that I do Sasquatch expeditions, and it'll scare the hell out of you, the amount of Sasquatches there. And,
wow.
They're pretty cool now, but when I first went there in 2004, they were pretty aggressive. In 2006, we had a little, I guess you could say, see who could pee higher up the fence post between me and the Sasquatches. I won that battle. Now we've been at peace ever since.
Okay.
But, we can do boat tours. We can do night boat tours on water taxi bear whale tour boats, which are 12-passenger, $300,000 aluminum high-speed boats with heat and flush toilets. But one of them looks like R2-D2, about that tall on top of the roof, and it's a FLIR, forward-looking infrared device. And he has a screen on his dash so he can see at night when he does ambulance runs. If someone gets injured, and he's called to the islands and resorts and homesteaders and fish farms and whatever that's out offshore. But when he's not booked, we'll do night Sasquatch tours. We leave Campbell River just after dark, and we schedule those based on a big low tide just after dark. And every month we got different slots if people are interested. But we just travel around with that FLIR looking for heat signatures on the beach. And we haven't seen one yet with that boat, but we've seen other wildlife. But the place where we go with Adam Davies, the celebrity Sasquatch celebrity, author and television personality, and Stephen Major, who runs Extreme Expeditions Northwest out of Spokane, Washington. They chartered a yacht, and I was the guide, and we went to this bay just north of Campbell River just to anchor out, and just after dark. And we heard a Sasquatch vocalize that night when Adam did a copy of a mountain gorilla call. Lo and behold, we got an answer from a Sasquatch from the trees up in the hills. So the next day we went and truthed the beach, and sure enough, we found broken cockle shells, what's painted on that drum, the favorite shellfish of the Sasquatch. And they were piled up. So I knew there was a Sasquatch there. And that evening, just before dark, at very low tide, we went on the beach to look around and dig shellfish. And I found Sasquatch tracks, and we found more broken shells. So that night when we went back to the boat, about 7:30, had a barbecue dinner, and all of a sudden the corks come off the wine bottles and everyone starts having fun on the yacht. And the captain's rule, my buddy, is once the corks are popped, no one goes into the tender boats. And, you got to be safe. Well, Adam Davies is out in the back deck having a smoke with mono FLIR scope. And he opens the door. He goes, Tom, get out here. You got to look at this. So I looked out, and it was a bipedal heat signature walking and squatting on the beach at half tide rising. And I'm thinking, what the hell's that Sasquatch doing at half tide rising? There's no shellfish. All the shellfish sands are all covered by the water. So all of us on board the boat took our turn, and we recorded for over 16 minutes with that FLIR at video of that Sasquatch heat signature moving around. The next day when I went to the beach to truth it out, to find out what the Sasquatch was doing there at half tide rising, it was harvesting a thing called a limpet, otherwise known as China hats. They're about the diameter of a toonie to the Canadians, silver dollar to the Americans, and they look like a Chinese, Vietnamese farmer's hat.
Okay,
but they're a mollusk that affix themselves to the rocks, and they move around like a shelled slug, eating the growth on the rocks. Well, that Sasquatch was harvesting those bigger ones, and that's that area where it was the night before. There was no big limpets, and the only big ones I could find were under the rocks and cracks, and there was a bunch of little ones, the size of a eraser on a pencil. So that's what that Sasquatch was eating, and that's what I teach people about being an investigator. You got to think beyond the scope of most people's tubular vision. Oh, the Sasquatches, they eat the pigs, the hogs, and the deer. And they eat the elk. Yeah, for fawn drop, mainly because that's the easiest protein to get during May and June and early July is when the ungulates, the hoofed animals, fawn drop. So you got to go to where those females are with their babies. Well, here in the Pacific Northwest, the elk and the deer and the mountain goat are going to be up above the tree line in the alpines when the June heat has melted the snow up there. And the reason for that is that's where all of the grasses are and flowers. And that's so the deer can eat that lush greenery and get a lot of milk production, but they can also see a long ways, so that they can see the predators, the wolves, the coyotes in some places, the bears, the Sasquatch. And that's where you go look for your Sasquatches in June, July, into early August. And in early August in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State to British Columbia, coastal area, the Sasquatch is up there. And then they look down and they can see the backs reflecting in the sun of eagles and seagulls in the rivers and creeks. And they know the salmon have come in to spawn now. So the Sasquatches come down off those high levels and go to eat the high abundant seasonal food of salmon. And of course, where there's salmon, there's raccoons, there's birds. And you will find birds like crows and seagulls. They'll find their tail feathers in their bottom end of their feet, and what it is, and their wingtips. And what it is Sasquatch is what we can do with a 22 single shot rifle, iron sight, long rifle. What we can do with that 22 to shoot animals, birds, raccoons, rabbits, small deer, a Sasquatch can do with a rock. So in other words, where you're from in Ontario, oh, I wonder what Sasquatches are eating. It's early May. And, oh, yeah, there's some deer over there. But stop, look, and listen. And you're going to see all those birds from little dicky birds right up to big birds. And you're going to go like I did in Nebraska in 2015, Omaha Indian Reserve. Ah, now I know what the Sasquatch is eating. They're eating the turkeys, the imported guinea hens, like a grouse. And all these dicky birds were everywhere. And then when you go down to the Missouri River a mile away where the marshes are, it's just loaded with ducks and geese and, things like that, and cranes. So that's how you got to look at Sasquatch, is look what the abundant seasonal foods are. And here in the coast, after the salmon, when November monsoons come and the rivers just blow their banks, Sasquatch can't harvest the salmon no more. And what salmon are in the river are very far and few between because it's tapering off in spawning season. So now the Sasquatch swims or travels to where the shellfish beds are for the wintertime. And, that's the seasonal cycle. Right now we got what we call smelts or ooligans, a small fish. And in the Great Lakes, I understand there's smelt in Lake Erie and other ones. So where those smelt go from the lake or from the salt water, which we call hooligans out here, into the streams to spawn, and they'll turn that stream black. There's so many millions. Well, the Sasquatch or a human just walk out. We use dip nets, scoop them up, or nets, traps. Sasquatch just has to bend down and pick them up and start eating them. Right now, we have the herring coming into the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, through Southeast Alaska, even San Francisco Bay this time of year. Mm-hmm. Sasquatches are going to be there where the herring are spawning. 3 inches of water, 10 centimeters. There's herring in the hundreds spawning, a frenzy. You just reach down, pick them up, and eat them. And so that's what you got to look at this time of the year. In Vancouver Island area, in April, we're going to have the hooligans coming into some of the heads of the inlets in our rivers. And then after April, hooligan run tapers down. The huge daylight low tides happen during May. And that's when the Sasquatches are going to those extreme exposed low water areas for rock scallops, mussels that are size of bananas. Wow. Swimming scallops, small fish that are in the tidal pools in the cracks of rocks where there's water, roll over the rocks, and there's thousands of baby crabs underneath, and sea bugs and bullhead fish and eels and blennies. So it's just the Pacific Northwest is just filled with foods for the Sasquatch, where just like when you study the North American Indians. So if you go on an anthropological quest to learn the local Indians of where you live, Ontario, Vancouver Island, if I wasn't an Indian, and you start studying the seasonal migrations for high seasonal abundant food sources, berries, animals, fish, shellfish, seaweeds, and other things, buffalo, antelope, ducks, fish, and tubers and berries. And you learn how those Indian tribes in your backyard lived for thousands of years in a seasonal cycle of migration. Now you correlate that to, okay, I live in Ontario, or I live by Lake Erie, and I know that in September the smelt are going to spawn in these rivers that are very shallow. I'm going to go investigate Sasquatch there, put up my trail cameras. All of a sudden, bingo, I captured one on a audio recorder at night as well as a trail camera. Or I got my video camera and I recorded the Sasquatch family and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that's how you have to be a Sasquatch investigator. You study the human and correlate the human's characteristics and lifestyle to what the Sasquatch lifestyle is like. That's why we call them the other tribe. So study your local Indians. Number one, learn their language of just simple saying things like, hello, I come in peace, I mean no harm, goodbye, I'm leaving. So that when all of a sudden you're in northern Vancouver Island and you get that Wallace Yuchbal, a big stink, and all of a sudden you notice, like that picture up there, that there's a Sasquatch with a hand on a branch and he's looking at you. That's when you look, don't look at his eyes, look down. Yo, Uixas, hello, how you doing? I don't know who you are. And as some of the reports go that I've gathered from my region, you might hear them say, Ichman, I'm doing fine. And then they chatter and say something else you might not understand. And then maybe go, Uidas le chonacha. What are you up to, Sasquatch? Blah, blah, blah. And he'll say something that you might not understand because I'm not fluent in Qualicum. But that's what you do. I've been to Omaha Indian Reservation with the Omaha people, and I've heard them. Aho, Sitonga. Hello, how are you doing, Sasquatch? And they'll say things in Omaha language like, we come in peace, we mean no harm, we've left some food for you. And Omaha Indian Reserve has a lot of interaction between humans there, the tribe members, and the Sitonga, the Sasquatch. And most of the Indian tribes I know of, they have a lot of interaction going with their tribe members and the Sasquatch, because one must remember that we had shaman. I don't know the Qualicum name for doctor. I got to learn it. But anyway, we had our shaman that were our doctors. And you learned it from other shaman that were older and past. And that's why they picked up the medicine bag, so to speak, and took over for the tribe. But some of them had to, maybe a shaman died of something, war, disease, injury. And now all of a sudden the tribe doesn't have a shaman. and the knowledge wasn't passed on in depth to anyone. So someone goes, I'll step up, I'll learn. I'm going to go out and I'll be gone for months, maybe a couple years, but I will return. And what they do is they go out, those apprentices, and they live close to and interact with the Sasquatch in their territories. And that's where, like, the Omaha, Sitonga, keeper of the medicine, that's where they learn the medicinal remedies, be it bark, bulbs, buds, sap, roots, flowers, whatever. And when they come back to the tribe, they have that knowledge from the Sasquatch. And I've heard, and if you investigate on YouTube with Indians and Sasquatch, you'll find not many, but you'll find some of the tribes, such as the Squamish from north of Vancouver, British Columbia, the Omaha, and a few others. And they talk about how their shamans interacted or learned from the Sasquatches. And then once you get in, like me, because I'm an Indian, if a non-Indian goes up to an Indian reserve and bangs on the tribal administration building and walks in and goes, "Hi, how y'all doing? I'm here to study your Sasquatch. How you doing, boy?" Right there, boom, closed door. We don't want you here. You're not a tribe member. You're not native. And you want to go investigate in our private property of tribal territories or Indian reserve, our most sacred creature, the Sasquatch, the Sabe, the Sitonga, the Gogi, the Halakos, or whatever the name is in their language, and you come in here like that with NRA stickers on the back of your car and Bigfoot hunting license sticker on the back window of your car, you're going to basically be run out. You'll never learn anything. So years ago, I realized that because I'd lived in the bush for over 26 years, commercial fisherman all my life, grizzly bear hunting guide for over 20 years, that hunted other animals as well, bringing people out, lived in bush because I hated the concrete world. I was a square peg trying to fit in a round hole out in the concrete. So I just said, what am I doing here? I'm not fishing right now. I'm going into the bush. At least out there, I'm at peace and I can, live a good existence. And that's what I did. And there was times where someone's close by, downwind from me. And sure enough, you'd hear something. And, yo, Wixas, how you doing, Chunaka? You'd hear a chatter and they'd just move off because I wasn't a threat to them. And sometimes, like that picture, I'd hear something. I'd turn around and I'd see a bouncing branch. No cougar cub, no raccoon, no bird, no bear cub. And the branch slows down and stops. And then you can smell that odor. What it was the Sasquatch looked at me, saw that I was a bush dancer. I moved easily and at comfort in the forest or beach environment. So they seen I was up to my business, probably saw I had a shotgun or a rifle over my shoulder, a knife on my side, and they pulled the branch down further. And when they let it go, they turned and walked away, and the bouncing branch was a message to the human. I know you're here. I saw you. I mean you no harm. I'm going to go about my business and leave you to do the same. I expect the same from you. Don't chase after me. Mm-hmm. So that's what the bouncing bow is. And I've had so many skeptics, loggers, trappers, prospectors, mushroom pickers, hikers. There's no such thing as Sasquatch. What a bunch of BS. Well, you're so full of it. And then I tell them about the bouncing bow. And then they go, dang, that's happened to me a few times, especially when I go up that one canyon, the Prospect. Yep. There's always a bouncing bow. And there you go. You're a bush dancer. I'll be damned. I'm going to have to look a little more closer, I guess.
Yeah. My daughter was, I can't remember where exactly it was. She went with my sister-in-law and a friend to a quarry just to collect various crystals like quartz and whatnot. And it's on the edge of the quarry. It's a forest. It's a wooded area. And all of us, and it was drizzling, so there wasn't anybody else there. You could pay and go dig whatever you wanted to dig. And so because it was drizzly, people generally don't like to go out when it's not bad weather, but they went. And all of a sudden, they smelled this smell. And her friend's just like, uh-oh, I think that's Sasquatch. And they just booked it out of there. And my daughter was just like, when she came home, she says, Mom, I think there was a Sasquatch there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I looked into it, and I guess there are some in that area. So I'm just like, Wow, that's amazing. Like she never saw it. She smelled it, and I guess the smell was following them as they were leaving to go back to the vehicle. And at a certain spot, the smell just went away. But she says she'd never, ever smelled anything like that before.
So Todd Neese, American Primate Conservancy, he's the Sasquatch wannabe celebrity. But anyway, he's from Mount Hood, Oregon. He's all over the internet. But anyway, he was National Guardsman, and they were up discharging dynamite up a dirt logging road. And they were coming down in the big vehicles, and they're doing a pretty good speed. And as they came down the hill on a corner and turned left, lo and behold, at the entrance to an overgrown rock quarry were 3 Sasquatches, I think it was. And he saw them for a few seconds. That was it. That's what made him become an investigator. Mm-hmm. So knowing that, and then hearing a few other reports about quarries and Sasquatch. So being a hunter, I went and investigated quarries. Well, what does a quarry always have? Decked areas of rock, trees growing up, and foliage. So for a carnivore, omnivore, like a cougar or a wolf or a bear, even a mink or a wolverine, a quarry is a great place to sit and watch those animals coming into those, what do all quarry always have? Shaded areas with water. So then you factor in, if you're a Sasquatch or another carnivore, why would you be in a quarry? Well, because there's a lot of cracks, crevices, boulders, and things like that. And that's where your rodents are going to be. Mm-hmm. Ground squirrels, mice, rats. And with water, you always got bird life coming in for drinks and bathing. Mm-hmm. So a man-made rock quarry, be it still being used but not too often, and it's overgrown a bit, or one that's been abandoned, like the logging roads all through the Pacific Northwest and elsewhere, those are prime Sasquatch areas. And a friend of mine who's a doctor of native medicinal and traditional plants and invasive species, she was running a herbicide spraying company a few years ago, and they were just, her and her female crew were terrified to go into this quarry because there's a gate and they'd have to walk in with hazmat suits because they were spraying hogweed and knotweed, and they had to have these hazmat suits with these tanks that were electric sprayers with the herbicide, and they would see these animal bones and big, huge pushes through the grass and everything. And then lo and behold, one of the girls said, "Oh, geez, I think I just saw something like a bear." And they saw depressions. So they went to another area and they got the EBGBs on Vancouver Island once again that are always being watched. So she said, "I'm so done with this. I can't spray. I need to hire you to be my wildlife protection officer." So there's Tom with his bear spray, his air horn, his binoculars, his big knife, and my 12 gauge. And I just kept their 6. And damned if her and I didn't see a Sasquatch twice. Wow. In this one area up behind in northern Vancouver Island. And then that rock quarry, I never went into it. She just told me about it because they'd finished spraying. But yes, and I've investigated other quarries. They're prime Sasquatch habitat. So, and then the other thing is that a lot of the rock quarries I've investigated are urban edge, which brings up another thing. So I'm 59 in 6 days. Oh, so I'm
an early happy birthday.
Older. Yeah. So anyway, 59, started my commercial fishery career in the summers when I was 10 years old. Graduated and would go into full-time commercial fishing all over the place, many different fisheries. My body's busted up. So, all the injuries and things like that. So me with my bad right leg walking up from sea level to 4,600 feet elevation to punch through the timber and get into the alpines. I think I better find a logging road that gets me really close to the alpines or in it, or get a helicopter because, I can't make it up there no more. So knowing that a few years back and then starting to listen to the reports in and around Vancouver Island and down here in Kent, Washington, I'm like, damn, Jennifer, the same girl that's a herbicide sprayer I saw Sasquatch with, she came to me because something was going into her greenhouse and taking half the tomatoes that were on the windowsill she placed to red up, picked 14 of the 15 oranges on a tree that she grew from a seed. So she was pissed at this street people doing this. So I went up there, investigated, and looked around, found some track depressions. Lo and behold, one night she was in the backyard with her 3 kids. 2 of her daughters are twins, and they were teenagers, young teenagers. And she was at the fire pit, and she had a sweater on, and an ember popped up out of the fire, landed on her chest. So she went like that and screamed. Something not 15 feet away from him behind a hedgerow, boom, 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 with its feet, and bolted, and it was big. So that's a primate.
Yep.
Stop, get away from me. So that Sasquatch was watching them, because they are the watchers, and was probably intrigued by Jennifer's 2 twins, and Jennifer being a medicine woman, doctorate of it, and it bolted. And she told me, and a few months later, she's calling me, and she's like, oh my God, I pulled into the driveway, and there was a female Sasquatch standing there at the edge of my property. And she has a big mansion, big property. And she had to text her husband inside to come out and retrieve her in the car to bring her inside. That's how scared she was. Wow. So that's what really intrigued me to, okay, even here in Kent, Washington, just east of us in Enumclaw, Buckley, we're getting a lot of reports. And I've edged the Muckleshoot Indian Reserve as well. So what I learned after a long time of investigating is when you go to the urban edge, no matter where you are, if there's Sasquatch activity, you go up there an hour and a half before sports is over on News Channel, 11:30, 11:40, because all the men are sitting there, wife's upstairs sleeping, husband's downstairs or in his bedroom watching sports. As soon as it's over, you might go outside, let the dog out to take a night pee, have a cigarette or a cigar or a doobie, and then go inside the house, turn everything off, go up to the bedroom, go in the bathroom, brush his teeth, wash up, go to bed, turn the TV off, turn the lamp off. Now it's like 11:45. And it's just like clockwork. Within 20 minutes, you'll hear whistle chirps, tree bangs, walking through the forest. And what that is the humans of the night, the Sasquatches. They're watching all those porch lights and house lights go out for who knows how long. And they've realized that once they listen to the house and they can hear that human snoring and REM sleeping, farting, well, they're not going to hear them go into the greenhouse where the poultry food is kept, where the livestock food is kept, the barn where the cattle and livestock piles of grain and other things are, the compost. Can you imagine or the garden, the orchard, Can you imagine, like in British Columbia in November, we might have frost on the ground, but you go dig in your garden, you're going to find the odd turnip or potato or squash you left out because it had a little bit of green on it, mold. So the Sasquatches have learned that the humans produce 12-month-a-year food. Now, can you imagine being a Sasquatch opening up the lid of a compost box and all of a sudden, I wonder what this is? They don't know what a cantaloupe rind is, or the half cantaloupe that was a little bit of mold, so we threw it away, and now it's eating half a cantaloupe going, dang, that's good. Or I was opening up and finding dragon fruit that we kept too long and didn't eat, and it's mushy, so now it's eating dragon fruit or some soft grapes or some moldy tomatoes, potato peelings, chicken with meat on it still. Easy food source. So that's what I teach people. Instead of having to go like most people, I always tell people, stay out of the yarn basket, steel wool in North America. Don't go into the forest. Even Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson were in a creek area with open banks and everything, and the Sasquatch was at the water harvesting or drinking, and all of a sudden it couldn't hear, it couldn't smell because it was upwind from the 2 horses and the 2 men. And that's how Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin got Patty with that 22 millimeter camera. And who has gotten us crispy Sasquatch images in the forest? The 2 elk hunters in Alberta, yeah, I'll give them benefit of the doubt. They spooked a Sasquatch in the yarn basket steel wool of a forest. And then the other ones that we know of, like the Independence Day and the helicopter flying and the family shooting guns and there's snow a little bit on the ground and you see a Sasquatch run along open edge. All of it's open. Who's captured us pictures in deep, dense forest? No one. A lot of people go, oh, what about Paul Freeman? Well, to me, being an investigator, and I can critique things. I'm a hunter, lifetime hunter. So when we look at monkeys, orangutans, chimpanzees, mountain gorillas, lemurs, and we look at Paddy and Independence Day and the Alberta bow hunters, Sasquatch, and a few still pictures, we're going to notice the Sasquatches are like those primates. Oily hair that shines and it's flat. It doesn't look like my regalia and my boxes, that synthetic fur and all spiky. And that's why I'm very hesitant to accept the Paul Freeman footage as true Sasquatch. It's too spiky. It looks too synthetic. And that's what I do as a Sasquatch investigator. And also investigate the human. So a lot of people say, oh, that stuff that's coming from Todd Standing, that's a real Sasquatch. I'm like, come on now. No. Todd was the type of teenager in high school that didn't have a prom date and got his head flushed in urinal by bullies like me, because I was the bully. And you can tell, because his sister works in special effects with movies, looking at his first couple supposed Sasquatches, it looks to me like he took a pair of scissors and cut the ass hairs off his dog and glued them to his face. He made a Muppet. And then you look at the third one, the black face. No, because when you interview the human, you interview the Indians like me and Brenda from, I think it's Arizona, and Jesus Payan from Breaking Bigfoot, and what's his name from Subarctic Bigfoot up in Alaska. When you listen to us and you phone us and interview us, you'll find that we're on the fence with some of those synthetic looking ones, and we're definitely adamantly against the bunk and BS that Fraud Standing's producing with his Muppets, because we know blackface is not a blackface Sasquatch. So investigate the human when they come out with a report. Like me, you investigate me, you're going to find that, holy smokes, that's like an Indian Daniel Boone in the 20th in this millennium. He's been a grizzly bear hunting guide. He lived in bush. He lived off grid. He used to walk in the forest for months on end sometimes. And he was a commercial fisherman all over the coast and still is. Now I'm going to St. Louis, and where I'm going apparently is a place of Momo. They're Sasquatch. So when I'm not running the boat in the daytime, I might go, hey, instead of staying at the cat trailer, how about I go across the river into those side channels, and I'll just tie the boat up in the beach. I'll sleep in the boat that night because they're got bunk beds in them and toilets and everything. And they'll probably go, yeah, go ahead. And I'm going to be there with my FLIRs and my parabolic listening device having a smoke on deck, and hopefully I'll bingo and capture a Missouri, Illinois Sasquatch called Momo. So that's what I've done. And I've been to the Northwest Territories. I went to Salt Fork State Park in, what year was that? 2015, I think? Or 2017. I got the plaque. Creature Weekend. So I go there. First night, of course, you're dog tired from flying across the country. So the second night, of course, y'all go with the boys and girls and we'll have a few beers in the bar and everything and have fun. The third night of the conference, everyone with their hangovers and tired now want to go drink some more beer. I went to the bar. I'm like, oh, yeah, I just woke up. I had a nap. I said, I'm going to go out and have a cigarette. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And they're all three sheets to the wind. They've been drinking since 7 o'clock. Not me. I was sleeping. Why was I sleeping? Because I went to the dumpsters and went on a knoll, hid in the trees. And I was watching the dumpsters at Salt Fork State Park for Sasquatches to come out. And lo and behold, something was trying to come out, but the wind swirled and it smelled me and it disappeared back into the bush. Daylight, I went out there, and truth, I seen the tracks 16 inches. It was a Sasquatch I had seen at Salt Fork State Park, but it was blurry, black, shadowy. Mm-hmm. But at least I truthed it the next day and confirmed that at Salt Fork State Park, after the restaurant closes at 10, they're going to come out and hit those dumpsters because there's all kinds of stuff. I seen the food they were feeding us and what was getting scraped in there. So That's what I teach about being a Sasquatch investigator. Break away from the norm. Don't just go there because there's deer in that field. You have to look at where they're going to harvest their foods and where they're going to sleep in the daytime. They're the humans of the night. That's why when the Qualicum Beach comes onto the potlatch dance floor, it does an anti-clockwise circle because that's our etiquette when you come onto a dance floor, no matter what you're dancing. And then all of a sudden it yawns and it rubs its eyes. Then it starts to walk onto the dance floor and do its moves and shows how it's capturing bad children, reaching out to them and throwing them in the basket, or rubbing the sap into their eyes so they can't see when they go in the basket. And then all of a sudden they're whooping. And then you repeat everything, yawning again and rubbing your eyes. Why? Because the humans of the day, us hairless bipedals, when we come across a Sasquatch, a Junocha, they're sleeping. And that's why they get up yawning and rubbing their eyes. So when you're investigating Sasquatch, you look for a prominent knoll like a woman's breast. And below it is where the salmon stream, smelt stream, crayfish, freshwater shellfish, swamp, pond, river, whatever kind of food is down there in abundance on that season. Go on top of that knoll because Sasquatches are like a military unit. On top of the knoll will be the elderly, the sick, and the young sleeping. And then around them will be the scouts observing, smelling, seeing, hearing. And then below them are the hunters and maybe another scout because it's a clan, it's a family unit. All of a sudden, a perceived threat comes up, a cougar, a wolf, a bear, a human. Morse code, everyone's now awake. They now wait for the mimic of an owl or a frog or a tree knock or a break, which means get the hell out of here. We were sleeping and put you on top of that knoll for 360-degree observation, smell, and hearing, and 360-degree get the hell out of here and be safe. So that's what you got to look at when you're Sasquatch investigating. So it's what I call bush chess. I'm a chess player. So when you're in the bush trying to find Sasquatch, you better have your best game going because they have forgotten more about stealth and camouflage and smelling and hearing and mimicking than we as hairless bipedals will ever know. Yep. So you better be smart like me and one of my investigator data friends are. We had his wife drive us in the minivan in a Sasquatch hotspot. And as we were in this almost like a ditch, the way the road was made, high banks and timber all around, as we were going around this corner, me and him jumped out the sliding door, rolled into the ditch. She continued on to the turnaround spot, closed the door, turned around, drove by us sitting in the ditch, and continued down the straightaway like the humans had come up, turned around, now they left. Sasquatch is up there going, oh, okay, nap again. I'm scouting, but I'll nap. Me and Buddy waited about half an hour. Then we crept into the wind, up onto the knoll. And just all of a sudden I got grabbed. And there below us was a Sasquatch listening and smelling. And we got to see the back of it. And then we made a noise and that thing just jumped, took right off. And that's happened to me 3 times with Sasquatches. You got to learn how to play bush chess. You can get on them. I jumped out of a pile of leaves 6 feet high at just after dark. And, hey, what are you doing? 8 feet away from a Sasquatch creeping into my camp. We were building cabins up in Broughton Archipelagos, my traditional territories. So you can put the jig and turn the tables on a Sasquatch. Best way, go to Sasquatch Island on Facebook, go to my website, go to my YouTube channel, and educate yourself and learn how to play chess with Sasquatches. And trust me, you will increase your odds of getting close to a Sasquatch and having a close encounter of the hairy kind, as I have had, or take an expedition with me. And I've put 6 people on Sasquatches through the last decade. So I can get you close. So a lot of people, and they saw the poster for the Glive, Oregon Sasquatch Conference. I believe it's in July that I'm speaking at. They went and made a poster of me in native attire and regalia, and it says expert. Oh, I just looked at it and went, oh no, I'm going to get all kinds of keyboard warriors in their mama's basements trouncing me on Facebook and other social media. Sure enough, I got the odd one. But most of my followers, I didn't have to go on the offensive. They went on the offensive and said, no, Mr. Sewid can be classed as an expert because of all the Sasquatch investigators that we have in North America. Show me someone else who's been a grizzly bear and other animal hunting guide for decades, been a commercial fisherman for 49 years, and been all over the Pacific Northwest, places most people will never go, gone ashore and explored and Sasquatch investigated where humans hadn't probably touched the ground since our ancestor Indians were there, and been an Indian for 59 years next week. And all of the other experience I have when it pertains to Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and that's why, no big head or ego. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Sasquatch. And, sometimes I have to put some people in their places, but then we need policemen in all societies. So when we get fraudsters and things like that, I don't hold back. I call a spade a spade. You want to try to BS us and pull wool over our eyes, that's disrespectful. And you will be accountable for your actions. And, that's what I do. But that's what we need in our community, to clean it up. And it's really cleaned up. Like, I can post now. And when I first started, 10 years ago, man, I'd be attacked. Number one, it was because you're an Indian, boy. What do you want to listen to that Indian for? So I was continually being attacked by some of the people out there, where I learned the block option. Just block them on Facebook. You never see them again. Yeah. And I've gone to conferences where people have come up to me, you blocked me 3 years ago. Yeah, you must have been acting ass, and getting real disrespectful. There's always a good reason to block someone. Yeah. I was just wondering if you can get me back on there. I'm like, well, you're whimpering and whining like that. I don't think you're all that a man should be, and I don't want you in my group or my social media world. Have a good day. See you later. And then I sit down at the bar to have a beer. My buddies are like, oh, so-and-so, they're sure whining away that you won't unblock them.
So why do you think there's a lot of people that talk about some of the encounters they've had with Sasquatch, and some of them are very peaceful and some of them are very violent? Why do you think there's the differences in these encounters? Is it because Sasquatch can sense our intent?
Yeah, probably to a certain degree. But the main reason is you live in Ontario. You've been to Toronto, I imagine.
Yeah.
So is there a part of the city of Toronto, like Vancouver, called the Lower East Side, where all the drug addicts and mentally challenged are all confined? Would you go down there at 9 o'clock at night?
No.
So Sasquatches are humans of the night. They're just the perfect human. They don't use fire. They don't use tools. They don't have clothing in most cases. So they're more in touch with the environment that our ancestors used to be. If you're an evolutionist, I'm not going to get into Christianity. I am a Christian. But if you're an evolutionist and believe in evolution, we know that our ancestors jumped out of the trees and were quadruped. And all of a sudden they were dragging their knuckles. And all of a sudden they stood up and they're no longer dragging their knuckles. And they lost their hair and their brow ridges and their big chins and their face changed and their body changed. And all of a sudden they're like, damn, it's cold. Better start a fire. Better get some clothing. And oh, gee, smash a rock together, I get sparks, I get fire. Smash a rock together, I get a tool to scrape and cut. And all of a sudden, when we reflect to the gods must be crazy, how an empty Coke bottle didn't disrupt the social structure, hierarchy, balance, and harmony of a family unit in South Africa. Well, that's what our ancestors saw before. And they said, honey, let's talk to the family. I think we're going to leave our Thule hut, our teepee, our pit house, our long house, our big house. And we're going to go into the forest and live more in harmony, one-on-one, like our ancestors used to. Because now we have hate, envy, greed, gossip, materialism, warfare. So let's go back into the forest. And they did. And evolution always kicks in. We're evolving right now where we're losing our baby toes because we wear shoes. Well, Sasquatches don't. That's why they have splayed toes like our ancestors had when we see the fossil record of our early ancestors in North America or North Africa. They had splayed toes, as does Sasquatch to a certain degree, and more so in some other regions. So when the Sasquatches went back into the forest, or not Sasquatches then, the humans, well, they started to do like a feral pig. When a wild domesticated pig goes feral, within a month or two, it gets hairier, darker, more aggressive, bigger, as does a dog or anything else. And nature takes care of it. So it got hairier. It got bigger because it's hunter-gatherer again. And now it goes down to a Qualicum Beach to dig shellfish at low tide with sun out. And all of a sudden, the canoe comes around the corner, and there's a bunch of bloody damn Indians shooting arrows at us and hitting us with spears and knives and en masse and fire and getting us off the beach and killed some of our family. So now we evolved to be the humans of the night. And with their hair and bigger bodies, we get nocturnal vision. We become what we call Sasquatch, Sitonga, Gogi, mountain devils, monster giants of the mountains, forest giants. So that's what I believe. But thinking like I do that they're just humans, just another form of human. Mm-hmm. You know, Himalayans and Andean indigenous have larger lung capacity because they live over 12,000 feet. Yep. Inuit in the north have larger livers to deal with all that oil. The bush people in South Africa, the females have a flap of skin over the top part of their genitalia that the scientists don't even really know why. Every human is different. Asian, Chinese have different formed skulls than us. They're still a human. Mm-hmm. Aberrant, can you imagine what it'd be like 600 years ago if all of a sudden you took a UFO and flew around the planet and grabbed an Aborigine, an African, Chinese, a Japanese, Inuit, Scandinavian, a British person, and then put them all in the spaceship? They'd all probably have a heart attack because they've never seen humans that look that different. Yet we accept it as a normal thing nowadays. Yeah. The diversity and different genetic forms and evolution traits to human of the planet. Sasquatch is just one of them. So now when we look at it in that level, in that context that I do, and you won't go to that certain part of Toronto because of the bad humans. I won't go to the Lower East Side in Vancouver because of the bad humans. Here in the Seattle area, I won't go to certain cities because of the bad humans and the elements in those areas. So Sasquatch is a human. Don't ever go near a rogue. Get away from the rogue. Fear the rogue. What is a rogue? It was a Sasquatch that was a clan leader, father of younger ones, husband to a female. But nature's code dictates that every leader must be ousted for genetic spreading and strengthening of the species. So a younger, more robust, stronger Sasquatch topples the head Sasquatch. The head Sasquatch is now like a head wolf that gets displaced. They're at the fringe of the pack, and that's where they're allowed to be. They can only come and consume the animal that got killed or fished in the river after the clan has eaten their fill. So that one Sasquatch, like wolves do, a head wolf that gets toppled, will sometimes team up with an old grizzly bear who has cataracts and abscessed teeth and arthritis. And the two old men will live together and hunt together and work together to get food. Well, that lone Sasquatch now that gets toppled, we know the stories of our form of human. That goes postal because the wife said, we're breaking up. You can't see the kids. You got to go to court. You got to pay alimony. I'm taking the house. I already dried out the bank account and all our stocks I cashed in. And no, I'm not sharing it with you. And then that guy grabs a semi-automatic and goes and does his business. Something snaps in their head. I know. I was there in 2007 when I was sued for $640,000. And I lost my home to the sheriffs and the bankruptcy trustee, my $280,000 tour boat, my $67,000 sea kayak fleet, and my $84,000 liquid in 2 bank accounts on Canberra River Indian Reserve was garnished overnight. I went from almost being a millionaire to a flat, broke, bankrupt Indian overnight. My common law wife at the time, mother of my our two young children, was a social worker. So she took a job with Haida Child and Family Services, and we moved to Haida Gwaii, Queen Charlotte Islands. And 8 months later, when she knew she could live on her own without me, pointed to the door and told me to get the F out. Oh. And when I got to Campbell River, I had $11 in my pocket, my Jeep Cherokee, all my hunting gear, rifles and knives, fishing gear, carving equipment, things I could make money with and clothes. I didn't have my children, but I knew with the Indian having a non-Indian social worker ex, snowflakes have better chances of survival in hell than I did of ever having my children live under my roof again until they're 18. Well, now one's 20, I believe, and the other's 22. And they both hate me and haven't spoken to me since April of last year. So the woman won. But in 2008, March 23rd, when I arrived in Northern Vancouver Island off the ferry, I had thoughts in my mind that I was going to go postal on the two SOBs that sued me, and I was going to get my revenge. But when I pulled in the Campbell River, there was a sign on a hotel where the Christian manager used to put quotes, and it said, "Success is not defined on how high you reach in life. It's how high you bounce when you've hit rock bottom." As I was putting my stuff in storage at a friend's garage, I said, "You know what, Tom? You're at rock bottom and you're going to bounce." And I've been bouncing ever since. I did not go postal. But can you imagine when we hear a missing 411, my good friend David Paulides, and I was on the Alaska to Bigfoot cruise last year with him in September. And I'll be on 2024, Peggy and I being flown to Juneau. Go on it. It's good. Alaska Bigfoot cruise. But anyway, he's documents all these people who go missing. Mm-hmm. Sure, natural causes, heart attack, stroke, broken leg, bled to death, animal took them out, suicide. But what about that small percentage that you equate into the thousands missing that were taken out by a rogue? And some Sasquatch clans are cannibals. So, when you hear Indians say the cannibal giants, translated, their name for Sasquatch translates to cannibal giants, the cannibals from the forest, the cannibals from the mountains, the Chonach to the Quakwaki who takes misbehaving children, rubs sap in their eyes, puts them in a basket or a sack, brings them to the forest up a mountain to her invisible home where she boils them up and eats them, is a cannibal. Well, how come a wolf, a bear, a cougar can kill a human and eat it, but they're called human killers? But we refer to Sasquatches as cannibals? Well, we only refer to our own species that eats its own species as cannibal. Yep. There you go. That's what a Sasquatch is.
So all these people that say that Sasquatch have mind speak and they teleport and they can go invisible and there's a correlation with UFOs and everything. That's not accurate?
They're so full of shit, their eyes are brown. It's called the mental Band-Aid. I went into a bay in probably 96, 95. I'd been doing my tourism in the abandoned native village all day long. I went to my boat, which I was staying on, a little cabin cruiser, 36 foot long. And, it's going to be dark pretty soon, but the tide's going to be 1 foot low. I'm going to go into this bay, walk along with my painter line from my 18-foot aluminum boat with the motor up, and I'm going to walk dragging my boat in a foot of water and with my hip waders on, bend down, pick up cockles and eat them, put them in the boat and bring them to the big boat to eat. So I'm doing that. And then all of a sudden I woke up and it was dark. I could smell bull kelp. So I looked over and here I am in the fog, pitch black dark, got my line tied from my boat to the bull kelp. These are big tubular kelp affixed to the bottom, like anchors and affixed to the rocks, so I wouldn't drift. And I'm like, freezing. And I'm like, how the hell did I get here? What the hell? Where the hell am I? What the heck? Untied the line. Didn't have any electronics other than a compass and a red light and my flashlight. So I just went along and I'm going along. I got closer to shore and I'm looking. Oh, okay. I recognize that big spruce tree that's dead. Okay, I know where I am on the chart. So compass course this should bring me down the channel, go slow bells, follow the shore. Yep, there's another kelp patch. I'm right on course. Half an hour later, the boat, went on board, got changed because the fog made me soaking wet. Looked at the clock, and it's like after 11 at night. What the hell happened in that 4 to 5 hour period from when I was there just before dark, bending over, towing my boat in shallow water, picking cockles? And all I could think of is I saw a black bear. It was on the bank to my right, the beach. It was a pretty long-legged black bear. I call it the mental Band-Aid. I got so bloody scared at whatever happened in that bay. Now remember, I'm on a beach with cockles. What else is going to be there? A Sasquatch. I never saw a long-legged black bear. I had an incident with a Sasquatch, and I got so bloody scared, I got out of there on my boat, and what happened in that 4 to 5 hour period, I don't know. And everyone goes, well, Tom, why don't you go get hypnotized so we know what happened and what you saw? I'm like, dude, I used to do this in my past. I used to be a rough and tumble commercial fisherman, hunting guide, born and bred on an Indian reserve for most of my life and lived on them when I was commercial fishing. I got so many dang skeletons in my closet. The last thing I want is some person hypnotizing me and recording me. And next thing you know, they're blackmailing me. I ain't getting hypnotized. So I call it the mental Band-Aid. Oh my God, I saw a Sasquatch. It turned into an orb. Oh my, it's such an amazing encounter with this Sasquatch. I was looking at Sabe, and he just cloaked in front of my eyes and disappeared. Oh, man, that was a big Sasquatch. It had to be 26 feet tall. And all of a sudden it was running, and all of a sudden it shrunk in size, and it ran up a ladder, and it jumped into a UFO, and off it took off. And I was there in my tent, and I swear to God, I was mind speaking. I was channeling with the Sabe, the Sasquatch. They had a Sasquatch encounter. I'll give them that. But the mental Band-Aid kicked in. Now, a lot of people will say, that's just your opinion. That's disrespectful. No, what is disrespectful is when people, and they know that when they come to Sasquatch Island or they're interviewing me on podcasts or they want to comment on a phone-in podcast or something, that I'm Bigfoot without the BS, because I used to be a member of Monster X Radio, and that was our motto. I have had numerous incidences with Sasquatch, 6 up-close, real good encounters, and well over 30, I can smell them, I can hear them, I know they're around, I can, just have that 6 spidey sense. Or my partner at the time, my friend, actually cousin, he was, oh, they're here, Tom. He was heavily fetal alcohol syndrome. He took his life a number of years ago. But anyway, him and I spent a lot of time in bush together. And he'd come like a little kid. Then we got given those, what do you call those, carabiners that you clip?
Oh, yeah.
When they first came out, we got given them and for this training course we did. And he come and we used to sleep back to back or leaning against something. So one guy had his nose and ears and eyes to one direction. I covered the other 180. And he'd come and lay it against my back and a tree beside me, and he'd clip it onto my belt. And, we sleep with our guns and our tarp and blanket underneath the tarp. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Oh, they're around, Tom. If they're going to take me, they're going to take you too. I'm like, what about if they take me first? Oh, I'll cut the line. You can have the carabiner. I was just like, oh, dude. But he was usually right. So, and me and and living out in bush for years and decades, I've had experiences. I've never experienced what we refer to as critterus as the woo-woo side. The mind speaking, cloaking, orb turning, portal jumping, UFO flying, mind speaking Sasquatch. I've never experienced it. I did see a ghost once, so I believe in ghosts because I saw a ghost. And I believe in Sasquatch because I've seen them many times. But to me, when someone comes and tries to shove their woo-woo down my throat sideways, I always remind them, remember what the Christians did to the indigenous people of 3 Americas. Over 126 million dead because of Christianity and disease. And still, we feel the negative ramifications of Christianity to the indigenous people. So don't be shoving your beliefs down my throat. I don't want to hear it. I'm on the fence, but I'm on the Sasquatch side. But from time to time, I jump on the fence and look over the other side. But I haven't seen anything yet that conclusively confirms to me that there's whole different element, supernatural element to Sasquatch. Now, for the native tribes that believe in it, yes, every Indian, like someone came to me and this went sideways on me in comments over Sabe. How can you? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, there's 670 plus Indian tribes in North America, Sasquatch Island, aka Turtle Island. And everyone has a different belief, perspectives, understanding, and encounters interaction for our ancestors, and even nowadays with Sasquatch. So I'm out there from my tribe that, we do have a supernatural belief in them. That some of our ancestors interacted with Sasquatches and got all kinds of different things. And but to me, I'd look at, did they? Well, they never gave me those kind of gifts while I lived out in the bush. So maybe it was just mythology and a story. But we do hold Sasquatch, as every other tribe, in high, high regards and respect. Never ever kill them, never think of killing them, never try to trap them. And if they throw something at you, shake a tree, push a tree down at you, do not do the same. Leave them be. Try to get a picture, video, audio recording, but do it in a respectful amount of time and then get the hell out of there. Because we're trespassing in their homes, into their domains. So with the humans being very respectful of the Sasquatch, we have to understand that there's a fence between the ones that believe in the supernatural woo-woo, that I term it, and other critters, and the critterist side. It's a wall down the middle of us bigger than Donald Trump could ever imagine building. So don't try to blend them. Let's do like the late Dr. John Bindernagel, my good friend from Vancouver Island, recognized as one of the old guard, true respectful doctors of Sasquatch back in the day when he passed a few years ago. But anyway, he would tom. He's very excited. Tom. Let us just dwell on getting conclusive proof of the existence of the creature, because we know it exists. And then, and only then, may we delve into the other capabilities, characteristics it may have. But first, we need a subject. We need confirmation of the existence of the creature. That's the path you have to follow. But John, what about the people that, want to make me believe that they turn into orbs, fly UFOs, cloak, jump through portholes, mind speak? Well, I'm very respectful with them. You, on the other hand, your character, just be who you are, the Bushman. Say what you mean and mean what you say. You know what you're going to do. And that's why I take his words, and that's why I have, like, some people, like, social media is so powerful and so good that so many people have seen through the comment section where I've duked it out with someone. And I just finally block them. And I put a picture up of the individual. He's from, High Plains, Alabama. But I blocked John Smith because he was trying to shove cloaking down my throat. So that's how I look at that whole other side. And in all honesty, there's enough people out there that specialize on the other side of the fence from me. There's enough groups. There's enough camping trips and conferences. I remember there's a conference over west of where I'm at right now in Puget Sound, and I emailed them, "Oh, you want me and Peggy to come and perform, speak, yada, yada, yada." Yeah. Oh, and it's like, Tom, we'd like nothing more than that. But as in your words, this is a woo-woo event. So that's respect. I reached out to him and he respectfully said, thanks, but no thanks. We don't want you.
I could listen to you for hours and hours. Like, you're so intriguing and informative. But I do have one more actually two more questions. What would you tell a person if they had an encounter with a Sasquatch for the first time? How should they act?
Best thing to do is Sasquatch Island, com is the easiest one because you can click my email and email me. I'm so-and-so, I live here. I'd like to have a better understanding of Sasquatch. And I'll send you my Sasquatch guidelines. So that's what will really help. Like people got to remember that back 25 years ago, I was with the industry on whale watching, that we were coming up with the regulations, and we came up with recommendations that you can always parallel them, but you have to be 300 meters away. You can't cross the orcapod's path. You can't zoom over them. You can't follow right behind them, and you have to respect them. We took those recommendations to the government, and the government, instead of coming in and saying, you got to be 3 miles away from the orcas. Well, what use to have an industry? You're never going to be able to bring clients to them. So we circumvented and beat the government. We went to them and said, here's our recommendations. And they took it and they made it law. And thankfully it happened that way. So I did the same thing. I created the recommendations and guidelines so that that just like whales and sea lions and other animals, a respectful distance is 300 feet, 100 yards, 100 meters, 300 feet,
Okay.
Give them that distance. So if you see a Sasquatch, close in on them. Yeah. Got to get those pictures. We got to get conclusive proof. That's a whole different podcast. We won't get down that right now. We'll be here till midnight. But anyway, get close, but be respectful. Try to, number one, you're playing chess now, so you better make sure you're downwind of the Sasquatch. They can put them in the upwind position so they don't smell you, and be quiet so they don't hear you, and be stealthy so they don't see you. And then when you do get close to them, that respectful 300 feet roughly, take out your telephoto lens and get some nice video and everything. And don't sit there like we did. We could have videotaped that Sasquatch for hours, but we chose 20 minutes. And then we all went back in to drink our wine, let him go out and harvest his food. Respect. That's what it's all about, Sasquatch. So definitely get a hold of me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be the Sasquatch shaman, I like to say. Come to the guru, I'll help you. So if you got questions, modern day smoke signals, Messenger and Facebook comment section. If you want to keep it private, so hard. I hate Messenger. It's so hard to keep track of anything. Email me. No offense, but it's white man's magic email. It's instantaneous, and I can even video chat with you or whatever. Yep. And or send me, if you want, send me a Zoom or a Messenger invite. Yep. And I'll be happy to talk with you. This is my studio. This is my world. And even when I'm out in St. Louis, at night, I'm not going to be working. So if you want to chatter like a couple Sasquatches, give me a shout. That's my role, to help you get a better understanding and hopefully increase your game so you get that close encounter of the hairy kind.
I love that.
I own that.
May I use it?
Oh, yeah, you're welcome to use it.
You're going to be doing some events in 2024, I believe. Are you going to be doing anything in Ontario by any chance?
What we're doing right now is that secondly, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, 2 ladies, they're throwing the second annual Sasquatch conference in Ontario. Oh. What we need is, I got to reach out to them again. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. But anyway, they need financial help, to get me and Peggy to get out there from Vancouver. You're probably looking at, be reasonable, close to $4,000. So if 100 people are going, and I think their ticket price is dirt cheap. But if people communicated to whoever's holding the conference out there and got the word out, that's what conferences are. They're licenses to print money. I hosted the BinderCon 2 years ago, and I go to numerous other conferences. But, going rate now for a conference is $40 to $125. So if you're charging $100 each and there's 100 people, or 400, you can raise a lot of funds to get some big keynote speakers in. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Peggy and I, Robert Alley, he just lives down the road from us, who wrote Rain Coast Sasquatch, and that's what, and then there's locals in your area as well. But yeah, I'd like to be in Ontario this summer for that Sasquatch conference. But I told the poor kid in England a month ago when he phoned me and all excited about how I want you at our conference here at this bar in England and yada yada yada. And I'm like, oh yeah. And it's going to cost about $6,000 to get Peggy and I out there. Oh no, I got no money. I can't pay you. That's why I call it the Sasquatch industry. This is an industry, and I sit here in the studio and paint. That's going to sell for $400 to $500 retail. 2 days it took me. So everyone makes $200 to or more a day, as should a Sasquatch investigator, speaker, performer, artist. So fair is fair. This is my industry, Sasquatches and fishing. So when I go to St. Louis, when I go there, they're offering me $500 a day US. I'm getting taxed and everything, but that's why I'm hanging up the paintbrushes for a while, because it's some good money and a great adventure in a new Sasquatch area to investigate. So yeah, with conferences, and Canada, I keep hearing it from people. Oh, when are you going to hold a conference in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, so forth? New Brunswick is doing it right now. They just said,
really?
They're going to have a Sasquatch conference.
No way.
Free, but they rounded up some locals, I guess, and they're going to have a Sasquatch conference. It's all over if you go to New Brunswick Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whatever their group is called. But that's what you got to do. So, people that are listening to this, if they get word out to each other, start whether it be a GoFundMe page or a Facebook page, and get it out and say, look, we're trying to raise funds to get Sasquatch Island out to our event. It don't take much. Like I started a GoFundMe program 3 years ago, and we raised $18,000 in a year.
Wow.
So there is the means with internet and social media nowadays that it's not all about, in Canada, number one, it's going to cost you $1,000 for insurance to hold a conference. So be prepared for that. Yep. Then you got your going rates about $1,000 to $1,500 per speaker. So don't go thinking you're going to get 10, but bringing Peggy and I in and someone local, you got Northern Ontario Sasquatch. She just lives up the highway from you guys. He can be down. He's pretty cool. I can give you contacts for him. There's the First Nations in Ontario that can come and talk on Sabe. For example, the lady who lives in Toronto, runs this conference coming up this summer, she can speak. So 3 speakers right there, 1 day, $70 per person to go. You got vendor tables, you charge $100 to $150 per, and you guys can generate $8,000 in a blink of an eye, and it pays for Peggy and I to be out there. That's how you got to look at it. Yeah. Everything is doable. Everything's a business. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and once again, SasquatchIsland.com. Click the email button, tom.sewid@gmail.com, and let's communicate, and I'll be happy to help you, because one of the events I helped coordinate and see happen was the 2010 Winter Olympics, when I was the chairman of Aboriginal Tourism British Columbia and director on Aboriginal Tourism Team Canada. So I've had a few rodeos. So if you need my help, I'm here to help. And I'll even teach you how to get corporate sponsorship. Oh, wow. Who knew? Who knew that the lumberyard down at the end of the road there is going to sponsor $1,500, and sports store over here is going to sponsor $1,500? And wow, that was quick to make $3,000. That gets Tom and Peggy to our event.
Wow. Well, thank you so very much, Thomas. I really, really appreciate this. Like I said, I would like to have you on again if you're willing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Get me on. We'll talk about the conspiracy and the government killing of Sasquatches.
Oh, yeah. That sounds interesting. Another show. Thank you.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about my encounters yet.
Oh, I know. I had a whole list of questions, and it's just like you actually answered most of them. I just let you talk. It's just, you're so interesting to listen to.
Well, thank you very much. And to the listeners out there, thank you for listening. Please reach out to me, SasquatchIsland.com for my email and everything about me, Sasquatch Island Facebook and YouTube channel. And don't forget the YouTube Aboriginal Adventures Canada. You'll see where I learned to speak in front of a camera.
Nice. And listeners, you already know that I'll be adding the link into the show notes so it'll be easier to find. Much love and respect to you, my friend. Thank you.
Halakulisla. Go in peace.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.
Paranormal Heart Podcast.